At 92, Carol Burnett finally reveals the 5 men she truly hated. For more than 60 years, America saw Carol Burnett as the safest smile on television. The woman who made millions laugh, who never seemed angry, bitter, or broken. But at 92, Carol Burnett finally admitted something no one expected. There were men she didn't just dislike, she resented. Men who betrayed her trust. Men who humiliated her in public. And men whose power quietly tried to erase her legacy. Tonight we're stepping behind the laughter, behind the kindness, into the stories Carol stayed silent about for decades. Because sometimes, the strongest people hide the deepest wounds. Harvey Korman, When Laughter Hides a Storm. For years, America believed Carol Burnett and Harvey Korman were inseparable. Not just co-stars. Not just partners. They were the heartbeat of television comedy. When Carol stepped onto the stage, Harvey was always there, grounding the madness, anchoring the absurdity, catching every fall with perfect timing. Their sketches didn't feel rehearsed. They felt alive. Like two minds speaking the same language without ever needing to explain themselves. To the audience, their chemistry looked effortless. Behind the curtain for a long time, it was. Carol trusted Harvey more than almost anyone in her professional life. She trusted him with silence, with risk, with the fragile moments where comedy could fail. And Harvey, in return, gave her brilliance, until success began to change the air between them. The show grew bigger. The ratings soared. The awards piled up. And slowly, almost invisibly, the balance shifted. Carol Burnett became the name. The face. The symbol. Harvey was still essential, but he was no longer the center. And that quiet realization settled into him like a weight he never spoke about. Crew members noticed first. The jokes backstage grew shorter. The smiles didn't linger. Harvey, once warm and playful, became distant. Not cruel. Not openly hostile. Just withdrawn. As if something inside him was tightening, waiting for a moment to break. Carol felt it too. But she chose compassion over confrontation. She always did. She told herself it was stress. Pressure. The cost of carrying a weekly show that millions depended on for joy. She believed time would soften it. Instead, it hardened. The breaking point came during a rehearsal in 1974. A simple technical mistake. A shadow falling across Harvey's face under the lights. The kind of thing that happens 100 times a week in television. But this time, it wasn't about the light. Harvey stopped. He threw his script down. And months of frustration erupted in one raw moment. His voice cut through the studio. Sharp, angry, loud enough to freeze everyone in place. And then he said something worse than anger. Something dismissive. Something that made it clear he no longer felt seen. The room waited. No one dared to intervene. That's when Carol Burnett stood up. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't match his fury. She didn't embarrass him. She simply walked onto the stage, looked at the man she once trusted completely, and said, calmly and firmly, "I've had enough. If you can't respect the people here, you don't need to be here." Silence followed, the kind that carries weight. Harvey didn't argue. He didn't explain. He walked out. In that moment, Carol didn't feel powerful. She felt exhausted. She sat alone afterward, staring at his empty chair, knowing something irreplaceable had just cracked. Not the show, but the bond beneath it. The world, of course, turned it into spectacle. Headlines. Rumors. Narratives written by people who weren't there. What they didn't see was the quiet grief of losing a partner without ever intending to. Days later, Harvey called. No anger. No excuses. Just regret. "I was wrong," he said. "I want to come back." Carol didn't hesitate. She forgave him. She hugged him. She let him return. But forgiveness doesn't always restore what was broken. They continued working together. The sketches were still brilliant. The laughter still landed. But something invisible remained between them, a boundary neither crossed again. Carol never spoke of hatred. She didn't frame Harvey as a villain. What she carried from that chapter wasn't bitterness. It was understanding. That even love can fracture under pressure. That even laughter can hide storms. and that leadership sometimes means standing firm without cruelty. Harvey Korman wasn't the man she hated most. He was the man who taught her that respect, once shaken, must be rebuilt carefully, or not at all. And it was only the first lesson. Jo Hamilton, When Love Becomes a Battlefield. If Harvey Korman was the storm Carol Burnett saw coming too late, Jo Hamilton was the earthquake she never imagined possible. He wasn't just her husband. He was her anchor. When Carol met Jo, she was still climbing. Talented, driven, but unsure how far the world would let her go. Jo saw her differently. He didn't just see a comedian, he saw a force. And for the first time in her life, someone looked at her as if her future was inevitable. That belief mattered. They fell in love quietly. No spectacle. No headlines. Just two people building something together. When they married, Carol believed she had found not only a partner in life, but a partner in vision. And when the Carol Burnett Show was born, Jo stood beside her, producer, strategist, protector. She trusted him completely. With contracts. With decisions. With the business side she didn't want to touch because her heart belonged to the work. For a while, it worked beautifully. Hollywood admired them. A rare thing. A marriage that survived fame. A woman at the center, a man who supported her rise. They were proof that love and ambition could coexist. Until ambition began to ask for more. As the show exploded into a cultural phenomenon, Jo's role quietly expanded. More control. More authority. More decisions made without Carol in the room. At first, she justified it. He's protecting the show, she told herself. He's protecting me. But protection slowly turned into possession. Crew members noticed the shift before Carol did. Jo began approving guest lists without consulting her. He dismissed emotional moments she fought to keep, insisting comedy should be clean, efficient, unemotional. What Carol saw as heart, Jo saw as weakness. And for the first time, Carol felt smaller inside her own creation. Then came the whispers. Nothing loud. Nothing provable. Just glances. Private dinners. A younger CBS editor always nearby. Carol didn't accuse. She wasn't built that way. She waited for clarity, believing trust deserved patience. What broke her wasn't proof, it was realization. People were talking. The man she loved was becoming someone she didn't recognize, and worse, someone who no longer saw her as an equal. The truth surfaced not through betrayal of the heart, but betrayal of legacy. In 1982, during a routine legal review, Carol's lawyer found something unsettling. Jo had formed a separate production company. Projects born from her show were registered under his name. One of them was Mama's Family. Carol's creation. Her voice. Her years of work. Her name was missing. When she confronted Jo, it wasn't a fight between spouses. It was a collision between love and reality. She asked him one question, quietly, honestly. Do you really believe this belongs to you alone? His answer was cold. It's business, Carol. Not emotion. In that moment, something inside her closed forever. The divorce that followed wasn't explosive, it was brutal in its slowness. Courtrooms. Reporters. Headlines dissecting a woman who refused to perform her pain. Jo demanded control. Profits. Recognition. Carol demanded only fairness. For nearly a year, the battle dragged on. She showed up every day with dignity intact, even as the man who once vowed to protect her tried to claim ownership over her life's work. When the court finally ruled, granting Carol her name, her legacy, and partial financial justice, the victory felt hollow. She had won the case, but she had lost the illusion. When asked how she felt, Carol didn't lash out. She didn't accuse. She simply said, "We were the best team, until he forgot I was more than a partner." After the divorce, she cut all professional ties. Jo's career faded. Hers endured. When Jo died years later, Carol didn't attend the funeral. She sent white flowers with a note that said everything she never spoke aloud. "I wish you peace. As for me, I'll keep going." Jo Hamilton wasn't just the man who broke her trust. He was the man who taught her the hardest truth of all. That love without respect becomes a weapon. And that even the deepest affection cannot survive entitlement. And yet she survived. Stronger, wiser, unshakable. But the wounds weren't done finding her yet. Marlon Brando, when power ignores permission. By the time Marlon Brando entered Carol Burnett's life, she had already survived disappointment, betrayal, and heartbreak. What she hadn't faced yet was intrusion. This wasn't a slow fracture. This was impact. It happened in the dead silence of a July night in 1972. Los Angeles asleep. The hills of Coldwater Canyon wrapped in darkness. Carol was home with her daughters, resting in the rare quiet that fame never truly allows. At 3 in the morning, the phone rang. The housekeeper woke her, assuming something was wrong. Studio emergencies don't wait for sunrise. Carol answered half asleep, bracing herself for bad news. Instead, she heard a voice the entire world knew. "Kill. This is Marlon Brando." For a moment, she thought it was a joke. A bad impersonation. Comedians lived in a world of mimicry. But then he spoke about a rerun he had just watched. A specific sketch. A specific moment. It was him. At first, the call felt surreal. Even flattering. One of Hollywood's most powerful men praising her work. Talking about acting. About loneliness. About how few women were allowed to command their own space in entertainment. But as the minutes stretched on, the tone shifted. The conversation slowed. The pauses lingered. The admiration became personal. Something crossed a line. Carol felt it instantly, that quiet instinct women learn early. The feeling that permission was never asked, only assumed. She stayed polite. She always did. But politeness has limits. She interrupted him gently. "Mr. Brando," she said, steady but firm. "It's very late. I have an early call." She wished him well. And she hung up. She believed that would be the end of it. By morning it was everywhere. Headlines transformed an uncomfortable private moment into spectacle. Gossip columns romanticized the call. Rumors exaggerated it. Some claimed obsession. Others implied invitation. Carol was stunned. What had unsettled her in private now followed her in public. Friends didn't know what to say. Strangers felt entitled to opinions. And Brando, the man with all the power, dismissed it entirely. "She takes things too seriously," he joked. That dismissal hurt more than the call. It made one thing clear: her boundaries didn't matter to him. Her discomfort was entertainment. Her dignity was optional. From that moment on, Carol changed. Not loudly. Not publicly. She withdrew. At events, she avoided him. At award shows, she turned away when he appeared. Her team quietly adjusted schedules. No shared rooms. No shared frames. No explanations given. She didn't want an apology. She wanted distance. Years later, when asked about the incident, she didn't dramatize it. She didn't attack Brando's legacy. She didn't claim victimhood. She said one thing. "It reminded me that boundaries matter." That was it. No anger. No revenge. Just truth. Marlon Brando wasn't a villain in her story. He was a warning. That power, when unchecked, becomes careless. That fame doesn't excuse intrusion. And that kindness does not mean consent. Carol learned something essential that night. Something she carried for the rest of her life. You don't owe access to anyone. Not to legends. Not to idols. Not to men who assume admiration is an invitation. And for a woman whose career was built on generosity, that lesson came at a cost. But she paid it. And moved forward. Stronger. Quieter. More guarded. Because the deepest violations aren't always violent. Sometimes they arrive as a phone call in the middle of the night, spoken by a voice the world refuses to question. Cary Grant, when dismissal becomes humiliation. By the time Carol Burnett walked into the Beverly Hilton that night, she had already earned her place. Her show was a phenomenon. Her name carried weight. Audiences loved her not because she was polished, but because she was real. She made people laugh by honoring the ordinary, by turning human imperfection into warmth. That night in 1968, the ballroom glittered with Hollywood royalty. Chandeliers above. Champagne flowing. Legends everywhere. It was a celebration. Cary Grant receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award, a man who symbolized elegance, control, and old-school perfection. Carol admired him. Almost everyone did. She approached his table with a smile, intending nothing more than congratulations. No agenda, no challenge, just respect. What she didn't expect was dismissal. A director nearby joked about her success, about how the country loved her show. Cary Grant smirked. Then, in that smooth, effortless voice, the same voice audiences trusted, he said it. "Oh, that show," he remarked. "The one where she waves her arms, makes faces, and overacts. I don't understand why people enjoy that sort of thing." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout, which made it worse. The words landed quietly, but they spread instantly. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter. People looking down. People looking away. No one stepped in. And Carol stood there, exposed. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She didn't perform outrage. Her smile softened. Her posture remained calm. And with quiet precision, she replied, "Maybe people prefer laughing with real folks rather than perfection." It wasn't an insult. It was a truth. She nodded politely and walked away. But humiliation doesn't end when you leave the room. Within days, the press caught wind of it. Columns hinted at frost between them. Fans, especially women, were furious. In an industry where female comedians already fought for legitimacy, Cary Grant's words felt like a verdict delivered by the old guard. CBS responded, not with attack, but with clarity. Carol Burnett represents humor that is humane and intelligent. That sentence mattered. Carol said nothing. She returned to work. And something remarkable happened. Viewers doubled. Letters poured in. Ratings climbed. That season became one of the show's strongest. Cary Grant, however, didn't stop. Months later, in an interview about modern television comedy, he spoke again, vaguely, but unmistakably. "I prefer more refined humor," he said. "Television tries too hard to be funny." The message lingered. Carol's comedy, her humanity, was beneath him. Carol never responded, but she remembered. Years later, when offered a chance to co-star with Grant in a musical comedy, she declined. Quietly. No explanation given. To a close friend, she said only this: "I won't work with someone who looks down on women's laughter." That sentence carried more power than any rebuttal. Ironically, years after that night, Grant's authorized biography revealed a private admission. "Carol Burnett is strong," he confessed. "She made me uneasy." It wasn't an apology. It was a revelation. Because sometimes, dismissal isn't about superiority. It's about fear. Fear of relevance. Fear of change. Fear of a woman succeeding without playing by old rules. Carol continued playing the people he mocked. Housewives. Clerks. Women with unglamorous lives and deep hearts. And America loved her for it. Her comedy endured. His judgment faded. But she never forgot the sting of being reduced in public. Not by a critic, not by a stranger, but by a man whose legacy once defined Hollywood itself. That night taught her something she carried forever. You don't need the approval of those who confuse control with class. And as her career soared even higher, another gatekeeper watched from a distance. One who would never insult her publicly, but would quietly shut the door for nearly 50 years. Lorne Michaels, the door that never opened. Some wounds don't arrive as moments. They arrive as absences. No argument. No confrontation. Just a door that never opens. By the time Saturday Night Live premiered in 1975, Carol Burnett was already a legend. She had built a sketch empire rooted in warmth, character, and human truth. She didn't mock people, she recognized them. Her comedy invited audiences in rather than pushing them away. Lorne Michaels was building something else. His vision of comedy was sharp, political, rebellious. Designed to provoke. Designed to break rules. And in that new world, Carol Burnett didn't represent the future, she represented the past. At least, that's how he saw it. When her name first surfaced in NBC discussions as a potential host, it disappeared just as quickly. No explanation offered. No invitation extended. Insiders recalled Michaels dismissing the idea with a simple phrase: "She doesn't fit the spirit of the show." It wasn't personal, which somehow made it worse. Because what he dismissed wasn't her talent, it was her essence. Over the years, the rumors returned again and again. Would Carol Burnett ever host SNL? Fans asked. Critics wondered. Younger comedians, many of whom had grown up watching her, were confused by her absence. But the answer remained silence. In 1981, a journalist suggested publicly that Carol had expressed openness to hosting, and received no reply. NBC issued vague statements about tone and timing. The door stayed closed. Carol addressed it only once. Smiling with that familiar grace, she said, "Maybe I'm just not edgy enough." The audience laughed. But those who knew her heard the ache beneath the humor. She wasn't asking for validation. She wasn't chasing relevance. She was asking to be acknowledged. As SNL grew into a cultural gatekeeper, the exclusion hardened into something symbolic. A line drawn between what counted as modern comedy and what didn't. And Carol, the woman who had opened doors for generations of sketch performers, especially women, stood outside. In 1985, during planning for the show's 10th anniversary, a sponsor suggested including her. Once again, Michaels declined. "We respect her," he said, "but that's not our kind of comedy." Respect without inclusion is a quiet form of erasure. Years passed. At a Television Academy event, both Carol Burnett and Lorne Michaels were scheduled to appear. When Carol walked on stage, the room rose in a long, emotional standing ovation. She acknowledged it with humility. Minutes later, when Michaels took the podium, Carol remained seated. She didn't scowl. She didn't protest. She simply didn't clap. The moment aired on Entertainment News and was labeled the coldest look in Hollywood. Carol never explained it. She didn't need to. Decades later, in 2023, NBC aired a grand celebration of Carol Burnett's 90th birthday. Generations of performers praised her influence. The love was undeniable. A reporter finally asked the question that had lingered for nearly half a century. "Do you regret never hosting Saturday Night Live?" Carol paused. Then she smiled. "I guess they didn't need me," she said. "But I didn't need them either." That sentence traveled fast. Because it reframed everything. Lorne Michaels had the power to invite her, but he never had the power to define her worth. Carol Burnett didn't need the door he controlled. She built her own house. One filled with empathy, with laughter that lasted, with kindness that outlived trends. The door that never opened didn't diminish her legacy. It clarified it. And when the story of her life is told, not as a list of achievements, but as a journey of endurance, it becomes clear. True greatness doesn't beg for inclusion. It endures beyond it. When you look at Carol Burnett's life as a whole, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. She wasn't tested by failure. She was tested by people. Friends who cracked under pressure. A husband who mistook love for ownership. Legends who crossed boundaries. Gatekeepers who quietly shut doors. And yet, none of it hardened her. She didn't answer cruelty with cruelty. She didn't chase approval. She chose dignity. She chose kindness. And she kept going. Because Carol Burnett understood something rare. That laughter rooted in empathy lasts longer than power, and grace outlives rejection. If this story moved you, let us know in the comments. Who do you think tested her strength the most? And if you believe kindness is a form of strength, like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it.